The
In Days of Our
storyline centers
Lives, the
around Tony
storyline takes a
DiMera,
dark and
Theo
explosive
Penguins,
turn when Chad DiMera
executing one of
uncovers
his
a
most
horrifying
cunning and
secret about
ruthless
Jeremy
schemes yet.
Horton.
Tony,
One that shatters the
known for his
illusion of his
manipulative and
clean-cut
strategic
reputation
mind,
and sparks
has
one of
been
the most
playing
intense
multiple sides
confrontations
against each
Salem
other.
has seen in months.
Gabby DiMera,
What begins as a
Sherry
simple
Jimenez,
act of concern for
who
his
had previously
children
trusted
spirals
Tony
into a
after he
full-blown
promised him the
public
CEO
scandal,
position at
an
DiMera
emotional
Enterprises,
breakdown, and a
is
fiery
already
clash that
furious
leaves
at
Jeremy's
being
entire
double-crossed.
future hanging by a thread.
However,
It all
Tony's
starts
treachery
innocently
doesn't
enough.
stop there.
Jeremy Horton,
escalates
who
the
recently
situation by
returned to
manipulating
Salem and
events
took
that
up a
involve
job as a
Theo
high school
Carver,
teacher,
Tyler
has
Joseph
been trying to
Andrews,
rebuild
and
his
Abe
life.
Carver,
He's
James
charming,
Reynolds.
responsible, and
Gabby
deeply
has been
involved in the
furious with
community.
Tony because she
Most
walked
of
straight
Salem,
into his
including
trap
Julie and
while
Doug,
trying to take
are
down the
thrilled that
Kiriakis
another
brothers
Horton
for
is
him.
carrying the family
Despite her
legacy
anger,
forward. But
she is
Chad
still
DiMera
resourceful
isn't
and ready to
convinced.
strike back.
He notices something off
Meanwhile,
about Jeremy's
Theo
behavior.
has been positioned as a
Subtle
new player in
flashes of
DiMera
temper, a
Enterprises.
too-perfect image,
And Tony uses
and an
Theo
eerie
as a pawn
protectiveness
to
whenever
achieve his
anyone
own
mentions his
goals.
past.
Tony
The
blindsides
situation
Abe Carver
escalates
in
when
the
Thomas
process,
and Charlotte,
pulling
Chad's
off a
children
move
with
that catches
Abigail,
the
come
long-time
home from
Salem
school
law
one day
enforcement
visibly
figure
shaken.
completely
Thomas
off
tells
guard.
his father that
Abe,
Mr. Horton
who is
yelled at
usually
one of the
vigilant and
kids
suspicious of
and
DiMera
grabbed his arm
schemes,
too hard.
find
The
himself
comment might have
outmaneuvered,
sounded small to
showing
others,
just
but
how
for Chad,
dangerous
who
and
lost
calculating
Abigail
Tony
and
has
has
become,
sworn never to
the
let his
betrayal
children
is
suffer harm,
multi-layered.
it sets off
Tony
alarm
not only
bells.
lies to Gabby
He
and
starts
replaces her
digging
with
quietly,
Theo, but also
asking
sets up a
around at the
situation where
school and
Theo
looking into
blindsides
Jeremy's
Abe,
history before he came
creating
back to
chaos
Salem.
among Salem's
What Chad
key
discovers
players.
makes his blood
This
run
demonstrates
cold.
Tony's
He
willingness
finds
to
sealed
manipulate
court
friends
records and
enemies
whispered rumors
alike
that
to
Jeremy
maintain
left his
power.
last teaching job
Gabby,
under disturbing
who is
circumstances.
already feeling humiliated
One of his
and
students'
enraged,
parents had
is
accused
now
him of
faced with
verbal
the
and
task of
emotional
outsmarting
abuse,
Tony,
though the
while
charges
dealing
were
with the
dropped
fallout
after
of
a
Theo's
settlement.
unexpected
The school
actions
covered
against
it up,
Abe.
and Jeremy
Gabby's
left town
response
before
will
the
likely
truth could
involve her
spread.
plotting with allies,
Now he's back in Salem,
potentially
pretending
including Philip
nothing ever happened.
Kiriakis, Stephen
Chad tries to
DiMera,
handle it
or
quietly
even
at first.
Theo if she can
He confronts
manipulate him.
Jeremy in
She
private
is
at the
not the
Brady
type to
pub,
take betrayal
telling him
lightly,
he knows about his
and her
past
past
and warning
behavior
him to stay
shows
away from his
she will
children.
strategize
Jeremy
meticulously
tries
to
to
turn
brush
the
it off,
tables on
acting
Tony.
smug and
This could involve
self-righteous.
exposing
He
Tony's
tells Chad
lies,
he's blowing things
sabotaging
out
his
of
plans
proportion
at DiMera
and claims that he was the real
or
victim,
orchestrating a
that jealous
scheme
colleagues
that
and vengeful
forces him into
parents
a
tried to
vulnerable
destroy
position.
his career.
Abe,
But Chad's
on the other
instincts
hand,
tell him
will
otherwise.
likely scramble
When
to
Jeremy
regain
slips
control,
and says something
being
cruel about
blindsided by
discipline
Theo,
and teaching kids
under
respect,
Tony's influence,
Chad realizes
puts
that the
Abe
man
in a
has no
vulnerable
remorse at
position
all.
professionally
Things
and
explode a
personally.
few days
He
later
may
at
have
the
to rely
Salem
on
Elementary
allies to
Halloween
uncover
event.
Tony's manipulations
Parents, teachers, and
protect the
kids are
city,
gathered in the
which could lead
auditorium
to
for the
tense
costume
confrontations
contest.
and power
Chad
plays.
shows up with
In
Thomas and
short,
Charlotte,
Tony's
still on
betrayal of
edge but
Gabby
trying
and
to
his
act
manipulation
calm.
of Theo to
Then Jeremy
blindside
appears,
Abe
smiling and
sets the
charming as
stage for
ever,
major
dressed
Salem
as a
drama.
heroic knight,
Gabby's
a
thirst for
chilling
revenge,
symbol of the man he
combined with
pretends
Abe's
to be.
determination
When
to
Thomas
thwart
freezes on
Tony's
stage
schemes,
after being
will
startled by a
lead to a
loud noise,
high-stakes showdown.
Jeremy steps
Tony
forward,
has created
grabs his
chaos,
shoulder
but
roughly,
in
and
Salem,
tells him to stop
betrayal
acting
rarely
weak.
goes unpunished,
The entire room
and
goes
Gabby is
silent.
poised to turn his
Chad
own
loses
game
it.
against him.
He storms onto the stage, furious, and shoves Jeremy back. "Don't you ever touch my son," he yells, his voice echoing through the hall. The stunned parents watch as the confrontation turns physical. Jeremy tries to defend himself, claiming he was only helping, but Chad won't back down. He pulls out the printed evidence of Jeremy's past, the court documents, the school reports, and throws them at his feet in front of everyone. "You're no teacher," Chad shouts. "You're an abuser hiding behind a classroom door." The room erupts. Julie and Doug are horrified, torn between disbelief and fear. Marlena, who's there with the other parents, rushes forward to calm the situation, but the damage is done. Jeremy's face twists from shock to anger as his carefully constructed facade crumbles. He snaps back at Chad, accusing him of slander and claiming he's trying to ruin his life out of jealousy. But when Chad demands that Thomas tell everyone what really happened, the boy quietly admits that Mr. Horton scared him, that he yelled, grabbed, and made him feel like he did something wrong even when he didn't. The crowd gasps. The truth sinks in and Jeremy's mask fully falls away. He tries to lunge at Chad, shouting that he'll pay for this humiliation, but two officers who were nearby restrain him before things turn violent. Rafe arrives moments later, responding to the chaos, and takes control of the situation. Chad hands him the evidence and demands that Jeremy be investigated immediately. In the days that follow, the fallout spreads across Salem. The Hortons are devastated, especially Julie, who feels ashamed and heartbroken. She begs Chad not to destroy Jeremy's life, but Chad tells her he's done protecting monsters, no matter what last name they carry. "My kids come first," he says firmly. Marlena and Belle get involved to ensure the victims' families are heard, while Rafe digs deeper into Jeremy's background. What he finds is even worse: multiple schools with quiet resignations, missing files, and families too afraid to come forward. It becomes clear that Jeremy has been using his position for years to control and intimidate others. When Jeremy is finally arrested, he explodes with rage, shouting that Salem is full of hypocrites, and that he'll make them all pay. The sight of him being handcuffed and taken away leaves everyone shaken, especially Julie, who breaks down